for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson, your host today. Donald Trump has been kicked off the ballot in Maine. We'll tell you about that. We have a double Hammer Time Award, but we have some very special circumstances behind that. And we have to tell you about a couple from Rockford, Michigan, who have pulled their child out of the public schools because the child asked school officials to use a preferred pronoun. The couple is now suing the school district because they weren't notified. Well, that's the school's policy not to notify the parents, and we'll tell you why in just a little bit here. Plenty of topics for today, but before we get to any of them, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on X, the former Twitter, at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube and Mastodon by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, X, Tumblr, YouTube, and Mastodon accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, and KZGM in Kabul, Missouri. So be sure to listen to us on your local Pacifica affiliate. So let's go ahead and start out with Donald Trump being kicked off the ballot in Maine now. He's already been kicked off the ballot in Colorado. Let's get to this story. This is Paige Lavender and Lydia O'Connor writing for the Huffington Post. This is dated December 28th. Donald Trump is not eligible to appear on Maine's presidential primary ballot. That's according to a decision released last week Thursday by Secretary of State Shenna Bellows. By the way, we should let everybody know we are recording the show on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. This is the first Southpaws of the new year. In a hearing earlier in December, Bellows heard challenges to Trump's eligibility for the primary ballot. Several people, including 3 former state officials, have argued that Trump is ineligible under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which says anyone who took an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution but then engaged in insurrection or rebellion may no longer hold office. Bellows wrote in reference to the Trump-fueled insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, quote, "The events of January 6, 2021 were unprecedented and tragic. They were an attack not only upon the Capitol and government officials, but also an attack on the rule of law. The evidence here demonstrates that they occurred at the behest of and with the knowledge and support of the outgoing president. I do not reach this conclusion lightly. Democracy is sacred. I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I am also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection." End of quote. So there you go. She knows this is a big deal. Another argument Bellows heard claimed that Trump is ineligible under the 22nd Amendment, which says that no one can be elected more than twice, because Trump continues to insist that he won the 2020 election against Joe Biden. Bellows, however, shot down this argument real quickly. Bellows' decision comes just over a week after Colorado Supreme Court ruled Trump was ineligible for the presidency and disqualified him from the state's primary ballot under the 14th Amendment, citing his actions on January 6th. Bellows was initially set to make an announcement on December 22nd, but delayed her decision after Colorado released its ruling, allowing for additional arguments on his eligibility in Maine from both sides. Trump's legal team has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to take up the case. In a statement reacting to Bellows' decision, Trump campaign spokesperson Stephen Chung slammed her as, quote, a former ACLU attorney, a virulent leftist, and a hyper-partisan Biden-supporting Democrat who has decided to interfere in the presidential election on behalf of crooked Joe Biden, end of quote. Yeah, I just love hearing them just go totally off the bonkers.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
It's really that simple. The 14th Amendment, Section 3 says, if you engage in insurrection and you have previously declared an oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution, you are automatically disqualified from office. Automatic. There is no, oh, well, he didn't get his day in court. There is no day in court. It's automatic. It's done, over with. You knew the penalties going in, buddy, so you can take the penalties going out. After Maine's decision, Trump posted a link to Bellows' biography page on his Truth Social network with no comment. Yeah, because he knows if he does comment, he's probably going to go to jail. The elected officials have had enough of this. They've had enough of Trump's mouth. His hate-filled orange pig anus that's right between his nose and his chin, which is called his mouth. Unbelievable. Trump's eligibility for office is currently being challenged in at least 16 states, according to a report published by the New York Times. This is great news. This is wonderful news. Trump should be off the ballot. He should be off the ballot for good, forever. He engaged in insurrection, period, end of story. He is automatically disqualified under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Automatically. There is no trial court for this. There is no, oh, he needs his day in court. No, he doesn't. He had his day in court the day that he went off on January 6th and told those people, if you don't fight like hell, you won't have a country anymore. He's the one that started it. Now he gets to pay the price for it. And if you don't let him pay the price for it, then democracy is done. It is over. Forget justice. There is no justice. If he gets away with it, there is no justice. Period. Oh, it's unbelievable. All right, let's get on to our next story here. This is one that we plugged a couple of weeks ago on our last show. This is from Madeline Bursma, writing for Wood Television out of Rockford, Michigan. This is dated December 20th. Two parents have filed a lawsuit against a Michigan school district for using male pronouns for their child without their knowledge. According to court documents, Dan and Jennifer Mead's child, who was assigned female at birth and identifies as male, attended Rockford Public School District starting in kindergarten. In middle school, the student started meeting with a school counselor. The school counselor was in regular contact with the parents about the child, discussing things like their mental health, schoolwork, and recent autism diagnosis. In May 2022, the student asked the counselor to tell teachers to use he, him pronouns and a masculine name when referring to the student. That fall, as the then 13-year-old entered 8th grade, teachers referred to the student with he, him pronouns and used the student's preferred masculine name, but the school did not notify the parents. Now, here's why. It's the district's policy to use the student's chosen name and pronouns and to not notify parents if a student is not out to them. Because this is what happens. This is what happened with this 13-year-old. This 13-year-old was pulled out of the public school and is now being homeschooled. Which, you know what that means? That means they're going to either pray the gay away or they're going to beat the gay away. One or the other. I'm sorry. That's my opinion on that. Because we've seen it with other parents. We really have. Sorry, not sorry. I said what I said and I mean it. We've seen this with too many other parents of gay children. You know, I hate to say it. If a child does not come out to their parent, there is an absolute valid reason for it. That parent, for whatever reason, is not to be trusted with that type of information because of either their religion or their upbringing or whatever. I'm sorry, that's how it is. There's a reason that schools have this policy in effect. Let me continue the story here. Vincent Wagner, an attorney for the parents, told Wood Television, quote, "No one with the school district told them that the school district had begun to treat her as a boy by calling her a masculine name and by male pronouns," end of quote. So the attorney is already dead naming this 13-year-old child anyway. So there you go there. That's why the policy is in effect. Another reason. It's called dead naming. In October 2022, the Meads found out the school had been referring to their child with he and him pronouns when a school employee sent over an official report and had inadvertently included a note from a teacher that used he, him pronouns and referred to the student with their preferred name. The Meads ultimately withdrew their student from the school and switched to homeschooling. Wagner, the attorney for the Meads, said, quote, "They weren't able to help her in a difficult time in her life, so it prevented them from helping her, and that denied them their constitutional rights. Schools shouldn't keep information like that from parents." End of quote. No, schools should, because we don't know what that home life is like. Like I said, a lot of parents, when they find out that their child is gay or trans or whatever, are not going to handle it very well. Pray the gay away, beat the gay away. We're going to do whatever it takes to get rid of this gayness in our child because our child's not going to be gay or trans or bi or whatever. I'm sorry. That's how I see this world. I don't see it with rose-colored glasses. I see it as it is. The brutal truth is a lot of parents don't understand and, quite frankly, don't want to understand when their child says, "I'm gay," or "I'm trans," or "I'm bi," or "I'm whatever." The parents don't understand. They don't want to understand. They don't want to get it. They want their child to be raised in their image, period. I'm just saying that with a lot of parents. Now, I don't know these Meads. Quite frankly, I don't want to know them. When you've got an attorney for Alliance Defending Freedom, or as I call that group, assholes defending fascism, when you already have an attorney from that group defending you and filing this lawsuit, you already know what my opinion is of you, and it's not a very good one. The lawsuit filed by the Alliance Defending Freedom, again, as I say, assholes defending fascism on behalf of the parents, says by referring to the Meads' child as a masculine name and pronouns without notifying them, the school violated their First and 14th Amendment rights. The Meads are Christian and say socially transitioning their child from their biological sex is against their religious beliefs. See, there you go. There you go. It's this mentally messed up, and the messed up is not the word I want to use. I'll just use it. This mentally fucked up belief that, oh, there must be something wrong with my child if he's gay. We need to fix that by any means necessary. No, the parents are the ones that need to be fixed. You need to get your thinking straight. You support your children no matter what. Good Lord. ADF Senior Counsel Kate Anderson, director of ADF Center for Parental Rights, said this in a press release. Quote, "Parents, not the government, have the right to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of their children. Schools should never deliberately hide vital information from parents, yet that's exactly what the Rockford Public School District did." End of quote. The lawsuit asks that the district policy be declared against the First and 14th Amendments. It also requests nominal and compensatory damages. Dan Mead could not go back to work because the parents decided to homeschool their child. And attorney's fee. So this is what it's all about. They want the money. They want to take money from public schools. This is conservative America right here in a nutshell. We want to take all the money out of the public schools and put it into homeschooling or put it into private Christian schools because we're going to push Christianity on you no matter what. You know who has bought more radio stations in this country in the last year than anybody? Religious groups, churches, companies like Education Media Foundation, EMF, Salem, you name it. Any of them with a Christian bent to them, and yes, they're bent all right. And they can go get bent as far as I'm concerned. They're the ones that are buying up all these AM stations that have been going off the air and switching the format and taking over all these little bitty FM stations in small towns. It's not the big conglomerates like iHeart or Cumulus or Town Square or any of them. No, it's the religious ones, EMF, and other groups like EMF. And that's something that should be stopped right here, right now. And I tell you what, if I had the money, if I was a billionaire, I'd be buying up every little radio station in this country to protect it from falling into Christianity's hands. That's how much I hate Christian religion. Because we've talked about it before. We've talked about it multiple times on this show. Let's take a look at what Christianity has done to harm people in this country, or for that matter, worldwide. Shall we start with the Spanish Inquisition? Should we start with Torquemada? Slicing open a little bitty slit in somebody's stomach and then pulling out their intestines, which is where the phrase that somebody doesn't have enough guts comes from? God damn. Rockford Public School District Superintendent Stephen Matthews said the district had not yet been served with the legal documents. In a statement, he said, quote, "As such, we have not read through them completely. We respect the privacy of this family and as such have no comment at this time. Our staff continue to support all students and their families as we work together to help our students learn and grow," end of quote. Del Darnell, who is the Director of Services at the LGBTQ plus organization Outfront Kalamazoo and uses they-them pronouns, said that they're not surprised by the lawsuit. Quote, "We've seen a lot of this lately, a lot of youth feeling more comfortable coming out and living their authentic lives, and unfortunately a lot of adults, whether that be school systems or parents, not showing up and affirming them. They're sharing a vulnerable part of who they are. We don't have to understand it to respect it, to dignify it," end of quote. They said the case highlights the importance of safe spaces because parents don't all react the same to their child coming out. Darnell said, quote, "We see situations all the time where that escalates to verbal and physical violence at home to kicking the kid out," end of quote. Wagner says they expect to hear the district's response to the lawsuit sometime in January. Yeah, and that's another thing, and I'm glad Del Darnell mentioned this. The number one reason that teenagers are homeless in this country doesn't have to do with the finances of the parent. No, the number one reason that teenage kids are out on the streets at night is because they've been kicked out of their house because of parents not wanting to honor their pronouns. Are we really at that point, folks, where you're going to kick your kid out of the house because they're gay or they're bi or they're trans? But we're there. We're there already. There are everyday concrete examples of this. Every single day, concrete examples of this. But it's anecdotal. Well, I'll tell you what. Take your anecdotal bullshit and shove it. Oh, I hate people. I really do. Most people I absolutely have a pure hatred of because people don't understand. Now, I tell you what. I wouldn't be surprised if you find out within the next 5 years that this kid has committed suicide. I'm saying that right now because that's also the number one cause of suicides among teenagers, is when the parents shut them out and say, oh no, we're not your parents anymore. You're gay, you're bi, you're this, you're that, you're the other, whatever. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of Christianity overruling everything else in this country. We're not a Christian nation. We never have been. Read the separation of church and state that Jefferson wrote to the Baptists. Separation of church and state. It's absolutely unbelievable. But we get these people like these Trumpers. They come in and they say, well, we're Christian, we're Christian, we're Christian. We're blah, 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 blah. Who gives a buddy? Who cares? You can take your Christianity and shove it too. Same place where you can shove your other BS. I hope this kid gets help. Not to change. No. Matter of fact, I'll take that back. I hope the adults get help because they need it. They're the ones who need the help. The kids are all right. It's the adults that are having the problems. Oh gosh. So without any further delay, I'm really pissed now. Let's go ahead on to our next topic here.
Stop. Hammer time.
Yeah, it's time for a little bit of levity. It's hammer time. Time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. We've got 2 winners. So anytime that we have 2 winners, we're going to allow Wade Garrett to chime in.
The double douche. Who is that guy? Gentlemen, Wade Garrett. Holy shit.
Exactly right.
So here's the deal. We have 2 winners, but we're dishing out 3 awards this week. So we have a double-double, and this is the first time that we've had a double-double like this. So winner number 1 gets 2 awards this week. Presidential candidate Nikki Haley. Why? Let's see. We've got the clips for you right here. She was asked at a town hall recently what the cause of the Civil War was. This was her answer.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do.
She mentioned everything else under the sun except slavery. That's right. Didn't even mention slavery. Didn't even bring it up. Other Republicans that are running for president against her really jumped on her case. Like, you don't know the answer to this? The answer is obvious. You know? But then again, they don't care because they're modern day Republicans. They're all for slavery. They really are. I said it. I mean it. It's unbelievable, folks. Absolutely unfathomable. So she gets award number 1 for that. Then she doubles down a couple of days later, not on this topic, but on another topic. When she was asked by a 9-year-old at another town hall somewhere whether she would pardon Donald Trump if she was elected president. Here's her answer.
I would pardon Trump if he is found guilty. A leader needs to think about what's in the best interest of the country. What's in the best interest of the country is not to have an 80-year-old man sitting in jail that continues to divide our country. What's in the best interest of the country would be to pardon him so that we can move on as a country and no longer talk about him.
I tell you what, Nikki Haley is absolutely unqualified, disqualified, unqualified from running for president. She does not have the qualifications to do so. None of the Republicans do. Skeletons in their closets, all sorts of, and I'm telling you what, I'm not a big Biden fan. I'm more of a Bernie Sanders kind of guy, which we'll get to in our next award here. But folks, the Republicans fighting each other is the 11th commandment being thrown out the window. Thou shalt never speak ill of another Republican, Ronald Reagan's mantra. So there you go, folks. Nikki Haley, winner number 1 with 2 awards this week. Slavery was not cause of the Civil War, and that she would pardon Donald Trump. Winner number 2 this week on the opposite side of the aisle, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman told NBC News recently that he's not a progressive. This is after campaigning as one for many, many years, comparing himself to Bernie, comparing himself to, going through policies. Oh, this is a progressive policy. We need to support this. We need to support that. Now he turns around and says he's not a progressive? Obviously, with the way that he's going after Hamas and Palestinians and just totally supporting Israel being a Zionist. Yes, that's what you are, John, a Zionist, a violent one at that. Yeah. John Fetterman is about the least progressive senator in there. The Young Turks started saying, well, I don't know if we should start comparing him to Kyrsten Sinema. Yeah, I think the comparison's right there automatically. Same with the douchebag in West Virginia that I always go off on. I can't remember his name right now because I'm so pissed. Really, what is wrong with these quote-unquote Democrats? Where's your balls at, folks? Where are they? Oh, they're certainly not where they're supposed to be. So to Nikki Haley and to John Fetterman, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Oh, yeah, you got that right. I am severely disappointed in John Fetterman. It's not a matter of being angry as much as it is being absolutely, totally disappointed in him. I thought that this was going to be the next coming of Bernie Sanders. You've proven that you're not. The next coming of Bernie Sanders are folks like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, although I know progressives, but she's just a sheepdogger, but they keep saying that about Bernie Sanders. Well, Bernie Sanders has been pretty damn consistent on everything over the last 40 years, including his consistency as anti-war, which he's not in favor of funding all this military action that Israel is perpetrating on Palestine. Let's be clear on that. They're not just going after Hamas. They're going after all Palestinians, all of them. Women, children, it don't matter to them. Journalists, doctors, doesn't matter their career, doesn't matter their age, doesn't matter their gender. They're just going to go right after them because they want to be genocidal. For a race that has been the victims of genocide in the past to turn around and be the perpetrators of genocide now, I wouldn't say poetic justice, but there is some sort of irony there. Because it's ironic. I don't know. I every single day I lose faith more and more in the world, in society, in man. It's unreal. All right, let me go on to our next topic here. We talked about what was going on with the Rockford Public Schools. Well, that's not the only thing that's happening in the public schools. Conservative videos are now teaching your children in public schools every single day. I mean, this is just unbelievable. We have this story. This is Tyler Kincaid and Antonia Hilton writing for NBC News. This is dated December 30th. Listen to this, folks. If you want to get angry about something, here it is. The promotional videos all start the same. Each begins with Marissa Streit, chief executive of PragerU, the conservative nonprofit primarily known for producing web videos featuring right-wing pundits and short documentaries criticizing progressive policies. Streit introduces a top state education official who then raves about the new partnership between PragerU and their state's public schools. In one clip, Oklahoma Superintendent of Public Instruction Ryan Walters, who, by the way, is a former winner of Douchebag of the Week on this show, says, Quote, he cannot be more excited to get this content into our classrooms, end of quote, adding that he used PragerU videos himself as a history teacher. New Hampshire Education Commissioner Frank Edelblut, in his appearance, explains enthusiastically that students in his state can use PragerU videos to meet a high school graduation requirement, noting, quote, it's quality content, it's highly engaging for the kids, end of quote. Montana Superintendent of Public Instruction Elsie Arntzen, meanwhile, says her state's new relationship with PragerU will help educators recognize, quote, how to teach things, end of quote. PragerU was founded in 2009. Its recent videos featured messages opposing transgender health care and suggesting Americans say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays. Last year, the organization debuted a line of cartoons and classroom materials aimed at school children called PragerU Kids, which over the last 6 months has received approval from 4 state education agencies. The PragerU Kids video content ranges from lessons for teens about why universal healthcare systems in countries like Canada are worse than the United States system to an explanation for young children about Israel's Iron Dome. Oh my God. The universal health care is worse than the U.S. system. Shall I kid? You know what? I'm going to pause right here. I've got a real world example. My mother, age 85, takes heart medication. She goes to a heart doctor. She goes to a heart doctor about once every 6 months for a checkup just to make sure that her kidneys are functioning fine, that the medication's working, and that she's not needing any more medication or any other type of aids to help her heartbeat, like a defibrillator or a pacemaker, anything like that. So she goes in to see this doctor once every 6 months. Visit's 30 minutes. I go with my mom to these appointments. The visit's 30 minutes. The doctor's office charges $116. Office visit. When my mom had original Medicare through the Carpenters Union and had her Part B through Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan that was paid for out of her pension by the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America Fringe Benefits Fund, when it was traditional Medicare, you know how much my mom paid out of pocket for that visit? She paid nothing. Zero. Now, since mid-2022, when the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America's Fringe Benefit Fund switched from regular traditional Medicare Part B Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan to Blue Cross Blue Shield Michigan Medicare Advantage, that $116 that my mom was charged, let's see, she had to pay $30 copay up front just to get in the door. So that takes it down from $116 minus 30 is $86. That $86 bill is then sent to Blue Cross Blue Shield Medicare Advantage. Medicare doesn't see this bill. Traditional Medicare in Washington, D.C. does not see this bill at all. Ever. It goes to Blue Cross Blue Shield. They paid $61.02 of that bill, which leaves a balance of $24.98 that my mom now has to pay out of pocket on top of the $30 she paid just to walk in the door to see the heart doctor. Will somebody please tell me where the advantage is in that? Please tell me where the advantage is. It's not. The advantage is for the healthcare industry. It's for the insurance company, the insurance industry. They're raking in billions and billions of dollars every year that they never pay out. That all goes into their shareholders' pockets. It all goes into the executives' pockets. Oh, Margie in the cubicle way over there in the corner, she gets a bonus for denying X number of claims per year. She's got a bonus she has to look out for. I'm not making this up, folks. This is exactly how our United States healthcare system works with Medicare right now, with Medicare Advantage, or as we call it on this show, Medicare Disadvantage. And yet, PragerU has the absolute audacity to put out a video to school children saying that the United States system of health insurance is better than Canada, better than England, better than everywhere in Europe. Bullshit! Let me continue the story. In one animation, 2 time-traveling kids ask Christopher Columbus whether he enslaved indigenous people. Cartoon Columbus responds, quote, "Being taken as a slave is better than being killed," end of quote. Really? And insists that it is, quote unquote, estupido to judge him by modern moral standards. In another, the abolitionist Frederick Douglass defends the founding fathers for not outlawing slavery. Oh my God. They actually have gone that far. Unbelievable. The expansion of PragerU into public schools has alarmed some parents and educators, especially leading into an election year in which culture war debates over education promise to be a prominent issue. Critics contend that the group's videos inject a right-wing bias into the classroom, and civil rights groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Human Rights Campaign have described PragerU content as propaganda. Guess what? They're right. It is propaganda. It's exactly what it is. Some videos have drawn ire from scientists. Several researchers told Reuters that PragerU misrepresented their findings in videos about climate change. An official at the National Center for Science Education said that allowing PragerU's content into classrooms sent an inappropriate message about how to teach global warming. Emails obtained by NBC News via records request offer a glimpse into how PragerU has been able to expand into public schools thanks to relationships with Republican politicians who helped with the organization's marketing. By the way, some of those names will be very familiar to you. We will get to those in just a little bit here. Edelbud and Walters each visited PragerU's headquarters in Southern California. Emails show Edelblut agreed to speak to the nonprofit's donors at a private event there. And a video on PragerU's website shows Walter speaking to staff and donors at ribbon cutting on the campus in November. At that ceremony, Walter said, quote, "We literally have an education system that has been indoctrinating kids with radical left wokeism. There is no organization, no individuals that have done more to strike at the heart of that left-wing dominance of education than PragerU," end of quote. Yeah, Ryan Walters is a son of a bitch. And I'll say that right now. That is what you are. Absolute 100% son of a bitch. NBC News spoke with education policy specialists, attorneys, and ethics experts who say PragerU's courting of elected officials raises red flags. All said it is abnormal and even alarming for an organization to try to get its curricula into classrooms by appealing directly to politicians and to ask state leaders to film commercials. Alarming. They're using the word alarming as in the alarm is ringing, folks. You better pay attention right now. Craig Holman, a government affairs lobbyist at Public Citizen, a nonprofit that seeks stricter campaign finance laws, said that the officials' willingness to appear in PragerU's promotional videos, quote, is highly unusual. It crosses the line of ethics when you use your official position to promote the interests of any single entity, end of quote. Streit said in an interview that PragerU is on the front lines of a cultural war in which one side is trying to manipulate children into hating the country through schools. Oh, Jesus Christ, really? She said, quote, "I don't actually believe that America is going to be taken down by bullets and tanks. I think that if America would be taken down, it's through the erosion of the values and the ideas that have made our country what it is today," end of quote. Yeah, those same Christian conservative values that are now dominating AM airwaves all across this country because they're buying up AM radio stations left and right for cheap Or even worse, getting them donated. Hey, I'll tell you this. Here's one. WPJC down in Pontiac, Illinois, 88.3 FM was donated to the Catholic Church because he couldn't find anybody to buy the station. A station with a transmitter set up inside of a bar. I am not making this up, folks. The transmitter is inside of a bar and tavern in Pontiac, Illinois. That's why he donated $11.40 to the Catholic Church because he couldn't find anybody to buy it. That's what happens. Yep, my former boss, Bob Goodrich, is part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. I'm done caring. I'm going to talk, and I'm going to speak my mind. Dennis Prager, a longtime radio host and PragerU's co-founder, has acknowledged that the organization is in the mind-changing business and doesn't see an issue with allegations that it indoctrinates children. At a recent conference hosted by the conservative activist group Moms for Liberty, Prager said, quote, "We bring doctrines to children. That is a very fair statement. What is the bad of our indoctrination?" End of quote. Oh, could we start right now with the list? By the way, let me add Moms for Liberty. They're in deep trouble right now because their organization's founder has now admitted for a second time to being involved in a sexual threesome with her husband and another woman. Not one, two. That's your Christian family conservative values right there. You know, I'm not going to be one to kink shame or anything like that, but when Republicans do it because they're the ones that are the most closed-minded when it comes to sex or anything like that, then when they get outed for whatever it is, their different sexual peccadillos, whether it's foot fetishes or threesomes or gay sex or whatever. That's what I get on, is the pure audacity of them to be hypocritical. That's what I go after. I go after the hypocrisy of these so-called Christian right-wing family Christian values bullshitters. Let me continue. In an interview with NBC News, Prager said his group's messaging is superior to progressive ideology that he believes causes teachers to focus too much on the United States sins. What? We don't... This guy hasn't been in a school in a long time, obviously. Where have we ever started teaching the United States sins? The Tulsa Massacre, not taught in public schools. The kidnapping of indigenous children and putting them into boarding schools where they were raped and then murdered, never to be heard from again by their families. That's not taught in the public schools. You want to know where you hear that information? Right here on this very show. Not anywhere else. Prager said, quote, "It's the old-fashioned approach of we're not going to create angry kids. We don't teach ingratitude. We think you're lucky to be an American." End of quote. Oh, really? I'd rather be a European. You want the honest truth? Oh, I can't wait to leave this country and become a expatriate American living in Europe somewhere, sipping pina coladas all day long. Probably somewhere in Spain, my favorite country of all time. Oh. It's difficult, if not impossible, to track how many classrooms have used PragerU videos, given that K-12 instruction is multimedia and a majority of teachers incorporate material they find online. Most show videos at some point in the semester, according to industry research. According to PragerU's own numbers, PragerU Kids content has been viewed 33 million times, and it has sold over 70,000 copies of kids' books and magazines. By the way, NBC News cannot independently verify those metrics because they're a privately owned company. PragerU is not the only conservative organization creating teaching materials, but it's one of the best funded. Here's where the names come in, folks. The group has raised $65 million last year, according to tax filings. Donors have included Ferris Wilks, a Texas billionaire who has compared homosexuality to bestiality. The Marcus Foundation, a nonprofit founded by Home Depot's co-founder, who is a prominent Republican donor, and a foundation run by Betsy DeVos, former Secretary of Education, one of the biggest enemies of public education in the state of Michigan, and for that matter, in the United States. But she's really gone after it in Michigan. Michigan has more private charter schools than any other state in the nation, period. That's because of Bessie DeVos and her dopey husband, Dick DeVos. Yeah, he's a dick, all right. PragerU kids got a major entree in July when Florida became the first state to approve its videos for use in public schools. Soon after, the New Hampshire State Board of Education voted to approve the use of PragerU materials to satisfy a newly required financial literacy credit. Edelblut, the state's education commissioner, agreed in August to visit Los Angeles to film the promotional video with Strite and speak to the nonprofit's donors, according to emails between PragerU staff and Edelblut's office. He paid for his own flight but accepted a one-night stay at an upscale hotel on PragerU's account, according to a financial disclosure form, which was first reported by New Hampshire Public Radio. Edelblut declined to comment, but his office told NHPR that the trip was, quote, an opportunity to promote, end of quote, the state's education initiatives. Arnson, Montana's state superintendent, agreed to appear in a promotional video for PragerU shortly after she signed a textbook license agreement with the organization in August. That is according to emails in which she instructed her staff to set up a time for filming. A spokesman for her office said that Arnson, quote, does not partake in political activity while conducting official business, end of quote. Oh, really? Looks like she did there, buddy. Got news for you. And noted that she has also done a video promoting the state's partnership with the education technology company Frontline Education, which I'm sure they're for profit as well. Huh. In Oklahoma, the Education Department added links on its website to PragerU videos, lesson plans, and ebooks following a July call with the organization, as PragerU had requested, according to emails between the two entities. Walters also volunteered to connect the PragerU team with the South Carolina State Superintendent, according to emails recapping their call that were sent to department staff. The South Carolina Department of Education declined to comment on whether it has had discussions with PragerU. Dan Isett, an Oklahoma Education Department spokesman, said in a statement, quote, Superintendent Walters is proud to stand up for Oklahoma parents and their desire to ensure kids are not bombarded with left-wing indoctrination by the teachers' unions and their woke allies. The partnership with PragerU is just the beginning to reset the classroom back on a pro-America path, end of quote. Yeah, really. You mean a pro-fascist path? The department declined to say whether Walters had paid for his own flight to speak at PragerU's ribbon cutting. I think Oklahoma Public Radio needs to take a look into that right now. Or maybe NBC News should. PragerU's foray into K-12 public education has generated pushback from activists and government watchdog organizations. Progressive Florida activists circulated a form parents could use to opt their children out of lessons using Prager content. Parents in New Hampshire demonstrated against PragerU before the state board approved the partnership with the organization. The advocacy group Americans United for the Separation of Church and State, which is an organization that I once proudly belonged to, and I need to donate to them again, and you should too. They, meanwhile, announced in October that it had launched an investigation into the process that Florida and Oklahoma education officials used to vet and approve PragerU materials. The group says the PragerU materials advance the myth that the country must be a, quote, Christian nation, end of quote, citing videos like one in which a cartoon George Washington says that the country should have a religious population. Washington never said that! Are you kidding me? Unbelievable. John Rogers, director of UCLA's Institute for Democracy, Education, and Access, said, quote, it's not just an alternate reality to what the existing curriculum is saying, but an alternate to almost any mainstream source of information, end of quote. He added, quote, textbooks and other curricular materials are supposed to both reflect the consensus of experts in a particular field, whether it be biology or whether it be 19th century U.S. history. The Prager model neither draws upon expertise in particular fields nor presents the controversies in ways that allow young people to see the differences of opinion that reside amongst scholars or amongst the broader community. End of quote. Jill Simonian, PragerU's outreach director, said the organization hired historians, journalists, and teachers with master's degrees to create the group's content and that it always relies on original sources. Really? I'd like to see those sources, lady. Keith Robinson, a middle school history teacher in Ohio, said he's used PragerU videos for years without complaints. He noted, though, that he avoids the most politically charged content, such as videos featuring pundit Candace Owens, who called the hashtag #MeToo movement stupid, encouraged people to violate stay-at-home advisories during the pandemic, and said she does not believe climate change is real. Robinson said, quote, "I am conservative. I live in a conservative neighborhood and in a conservative district, but I'm not pushing conservative ideas on kids." End of quote. Really? You're using their material, so guess what you're doing there, buddy? Unbelievable. In interviews, PragerU executives characterized the backlash as a reaction to the organization's threat to the dominance of the largest education publishers such as Pearson and Scholastic, which both make multimedia content. Scholastic has recently faced complaints from conservatives that its book fairs give children access to books they consider to be explicit or too mature. Spokespeople for Pearson and Scholastic said the companies do not ask elected state officials to appear in marketing materials. Zing! In the year ahead, according to PragerU representatives, the organization plans to continue discussions to get more states to approve its videos as a resource for teachers and to develop additional educational materials. Prager said he'd like to see the American education system resemble how it operated generations ago, when there was more attention to, quote, character development, end of quote, in schools. Like the 1930s, he added, quote, minus the bad things, end of quote. Yeah, character development like the 1930s, which basically meant, all the schools are going to be whites because we're not allowing no n***s. That's what he'd like. I'm just being honest, folks. And tell you what, I'm the only one that's going to be honest with you about this stuff. Really. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, real quickly, we get to our last story here. We've got 3 big laws taking effect in 2024. This is a compilation story that was put together by the Holland Sentinel newspaper. We were going to have a story about the latest involving Ottawa Impact and the fight to try and fire their public health officer, Adeline Hambley, but we will get to that in next week's show. But we are in the new year, 2024. I've already broken my promise not to swear as much. That's gone out the window. The story reads this way. A bevy of Democratic bills signed into law by Governor Gretchen Whitmer this year did not garner enough GOP support to take effect immediately, but major changes Democrats made on labor, gun, and abortion policies in Michigan will kick in next year. In 2022, Democrats won full control of the state legislature for the first time in 40 years. They wielded their new legislative majorities to take action on policies that stalled under GOP control of the legislature. But without sufficient Republican support on some measures, legislation approved by Whitmer did not go into effect as soon as the ink from her signature on the bills began to dry. Instead, legislation that did not obtain enough votes to take immediate effect becomes effective 90 days after the state legislature adjourns for the year. This legislative session, lawmakers adjourned historically early, enabling laws not granted immediate effect to kick in mid-February unless the legislation specified a different effective date. That includes a bill setting Michigan's presidential primary date for February 27th, Whitmer's tax overhaul, and some changes to Michigan's education system, such as removing a state requirement to hold back third graders who fail a reading proficiency test and eliminating an A through F letter grade system for ranking public schools. That's good news. Other big changes Democrats made in Michigan will take shape early next year. On a party line vote, Democratic lawmakers approved legislation repealing Michigan's so-called right-to-work law, which allowed those in unionized workplaces to opt out of paying union dues and fees. That should have been the first priority in the state of Michigan, and I'm glad they got it done. Just over half of the states have right-to-work laws in place. With the stroke of her pen, Whitmer made Michigan the first state in nearly 60 years to abandon the policy, which was long opposed by labor advocates. The new law, taking effect early next year, will impact those in the private sector whose workplaces have collective bargaining agreements in place. A U.S. Supreme Court decision currently bars public sector unions from requiring employees covered by collective bargaining agreements to pay union dues. But Whitmer also signed a bill that repeals right to work for public sector workers in the event the court reverses that decision. Also, a series of gun safety bills signed by Whitmer will also go into effect next year. Those include an expansion of background checks to include all firearms purchases, requirements to safely store guns to keep them out of the hands of children, and a new law allowing courts to temporarily remove guns from those a judge deems pose an imminent threat to themselves or others. Whitmer also signed a package of bills that will temporarily ban those with domestic violence convictions from possessing and purchasing firearms and ammunition in Michigan. And the last one, which is also phenomenal, after Michigan voters approved an amendment enshrining abortion rights in the state constitution last year, Democrats in the state legislature followed up by repealing some abortion-related restrictions Michigan had on the books. Whitmer signed a new Reproductive Health Act, removing regulations for clinics that abortion rights advocates characterized as onerous, a state law requiring the purchase of a special insurance rider for private health plans to cover abortion, and another banning higher education institutions, pregnant and parenting services offices from providing referrals for abortion services. While Whitmer has called on lawmakers to repeal Michigan's 24-hour waiting period for those seeking abortions and a ban on Medicaid funding for the procedure, Democrats did not have enough votes to do so, which is a shame. That means that we have right-to-lifers in the Democratic Party, and you know what I say we need to do? You need to purge all the right-to-lifers out of the Democratic Party. Get rid of them. Period. If they want to be violent, they can go join the Republicans and be evil, violent, conservative traitors. Just like Trump, just like all the MAGA ilk. I'm sorry. I'm right on this issue. You need to purge all of the right-to-lifers out of the Democratic Party. They don't belong. They're wrong on this issue. Absolutely, 100% positively wrong. Get them out. Get them out. Now, while you can. Well, folks, that's going to wrap things up for yet another week here at Southpaws. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson, asking you to please support independent media, the First Amendment, and most definitely a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.